right, good morning, everybody. The Manchild here, along with Paul Boy Green Esden. You see him right next to me. Welcome to another edition of At MC Show Digital, the Manchild Show with Boy Green Digital, live on YouTube. We send it out also through Facebook and through Paul's YouTube channel at Boy Green 25. So good to have you all aboard as we talk sports with you live on a Wednesday. We are earlier than normal. Normally, we're doing this at 11 o'clock, but we have some conflicts today. So we are doing a 9 o'clock, and we've got a special guest that we're going to bring in almost instantaneously. By the way, today's broadcast is brought to you by our friends at Play It Again Sports. Play It Again Sports in DeWitt, down on Erie Boulevard in the Taco Bell Plaza. Go see our friends at Play It Again today, where you can buy gently used sporting goods at discounted prices, and you can bring in your own gently used sporting goods and get some cash money for them. All right, without further ado, Boy Green, there's a purpose to us today. Our topic A, as they say in the biz, is a story that was put out by Chris Carlson and Mike Waters, two writers for Syracuse.com who cover sports over there. Mike is a beat reporter for the Syracuse basketball team. Chris does all kinds of things, including
do it all, man.
Basketball, do it all, man. We've had him on our radio show many, many times. This is the first time he's going to join us on the podcast. The piece is entitled Behind Adam Weitsman's Breakup with Syracuse University, Money, Image, and a Need for Control. I love the title of the article. So salacious. I feel like we're talking in the morning sun here down in Britain. But let's bring him in and talk all about it. It's time to talk to Chris Carlson. Good morning, Chris. How are you?
Real quick, I just want to say that the direct link to Chris and Mike's piece is in our YouTube description down below, so you guys can check that out on the Manchild Show with Boy Green digital page. Just want to say that to start. But yes, here is Chris.
Hey, guys. Thanks so much for having me this morning.
All right, let's break down the story. So many layers to this. This is a story, Chris, that I think a lot of folks really, really wanted to hear about. There has been a lot of chatter in the 2 years since Adam Weitsman has moved away from the Syracuse program and is now donating his money, to Siena and Lemoyne and other entities. But he had created a buzz at the JMA Dome for bringing celebrities and having those courtside seats and giving Syracuse University, dare I say, some national attention. So let's just start at the crux of it and just talk a little bit about the time of the breakup and why, in your mind, and from what the piece says, Adam Weitsman walked away from Syracuse University basketball.
Yeah, I mean, to me, right, the most interesting part of the story, is, there's a lot of unknowns, right? But there was this assumption because Adam had said he wanted to pay recruits $1 million. He wanted to pay Syracuse athletes $1 million. There was an assumption that sort of that's what happened. And the truth was, before he left Syracuse University, he'd paid athletes $160,000, less than $160,000, $153,000. Now, he'd only said he planned to pay $1 million, and, he didn't necessarily get to complete those plans. So we can't say he wasn't going to. We can't say he lied about the amount of money he was going to spend. I think there's skepticism. There's probably appropriate skepticism, and there certainly was from the university, based on the number he spent and the substantial gap between that and what he sort of said that he was going to. But we don't know where he was going to end up. Like that, to me, that's like the most important point that I want to make today, right? Like I think it's very fair to question the impact he made. He is certainly not the savior of Syracuse basketball. His departure was certainly not the death knell. But we don't know how things would have played out if he stayed around.
Right. I mean, the program's always bigger than the people, right, Chris? I mean, I think that goes for everybody, including the former head coach. I mean, the program's always bigger than the people. That's just a part of business. You guys did uncover some actual numbers, and it seems to me from the numbers you uncovered that Adam Weitsman was very cooperative, that Adam was willing to share some numbers. He was willing to give you guys some facts and figures, and it seemed like, for the most part, that in the answers that the university provided, and I want to talk to you about their side of things in a moment, that those numbers, for the most part, fairly meshed. And talk a little bit about those numbers, what Weitsman actually did donate, what actually he did do, and the fact that the university seems to have, for the most part, corroborated most of those numbers.
I think the I think sort of the university sort of sharing its numbers for the first time in terms of a total was sort of the key here. And schools don't have to share that information. They are largely reluctant to. But I think Syracuse sort of recognized that without those numbers being public, anytime the Syracuse basketball team struggled, this conversation was just going to be had over and over again ad nauseum. And it was finally time to put some numbers forward. After they came out, Adam was detailed, very detailed with the numbers that he provided, including, a $30,000 transaction with Elijah Clark that the university didn't have a record for. Don't know why that is. But like you said, the numbers largely matched. Adam donated $153,000 to players in NIL. He donated more than $50,000 in jet time to the members of the men's basketball program.
He has a private jet. Go ahead, go on.
Yeah, and he spent about $1 million. And one of the, just to show you how far apart these two sides are, like there was this, the two sides could not agree if Adam was a donor. Syracuse described him as like a customer. All of his money, virtually all his money was on tickets. He was very transactional. That a donor does not make. And Adam's response was like, well, the money I spent goes towards donor points and puts me on this list, your Cuse Athletic Fund donor list that's started by your athletic department. So what do you mean I'm not a donor? And I just think that goes to show just how far apart these two sides were on how they viewed the relationship.
And let's go to another piece of this. Chris, we're talking about things that they may have disagreed on, and that is featured in the piece. Well, another thing that happened was about the website that SyracuseOrange.com that Adam Weitsman acquired and then eventually donated. And he asked for a $250,000 valuation for the donation. And similar to any negotiation that I have with my fiance, I'm at this point, she's at this point. Like where I'm at a $250,000 and she's at $1. Is that how did that happen?
And both sides confirmed that, right? That he was asking $250 and he ended up giving it over for $1. Go ahead, talk about that.
Yeah, and didn't get $1, right? It was donated, and that's what he was allowed to sort of say he gave to charity. That was what the charitable contribution was valued at. So the natural assumption is, when people give to charity, they generally write it off on their taxes. They get the charitable contribution. So Adam said, hey, SyracuseOrange.com, that's your name. That is a valuable property. I'm going to give it to you, but I think it's worth this much money. And I think we should all view that with some skepticism, that is its value. He was certainly looking for probably as big a tax credit as he could. The domain's probably also worth more than $1.
Right. It's always somewhere in between, right?
It is probably somewhere in between. But again, this was 2024, so that was after sort of the relationship had spoiled. So it shows you just how sort of I think petty and difficult and entrenched both sides were in sort of their hard feelings toward each other.
Yeah, it seems like the university's not way off in making some of the statements that they made in terms of, what Adam was actually contributing. I was actually surprised when I read your and Mike's numbers in this piece that, he was giving money. He gave $24,000 to Diasia Fair, a women's basketball player. Joe Girard received $24,000. Judah Mintz, $24,000. A few other players, I think it was 7 total players on the basketball team. Some
lesser
only getting
money, right.
$5,000 stipends. I mean, in today's NIL, come on, we're reading stories every day, Chris, about millions of dollars going to big time quarterbacks and big time folks and big time programs. I mean, this is a pittance. This is crumbs, as they say, breadcrumbs. So his public profile and those courtside seats and the celebrities sitting alongside don't really, at least in my mind, go along with the donations or the contributions that were actually going to players. How did he, how did he amend that, or how did he discuss that part of it, and whether or not, he should be, quote, considered a donor? I mean, I think this is really mincing words, the university not saying he's a donor. That's silly. But the fact that it wasn't the money that I think a lot of people would have thought.
One of the things Adam said, and I think he's correct in this because I looked for it. He's like, I never said I was a big donor. Like, I never said I was at the level of the Lallies. I never claimed that to be true. And I think it's true. I think he never said it. I think we all assumed it. I think we wrote it. I think he didn't correct us. Right. when we made incorrect assumptions about sort of what he was spending. But I think that's true. Other than, saying, hey, when I do NIL, I'm all in, I'm going to try to help win a national championship at Syracuse, which is certainly misleading with what he spent. But we don't know how much he would have spent. His argument was sort of, I never said any of those things. You guys said it because I'm a good customer and I had these seats and I brought these celebrities to the game. And I think one area, again, where like the university and Adam are apart, we're pretty far apart. Like, I think Adam, like a lot of people, spends his money in ways that he enjoys. Like, he enjoys Syracuse basketball. He enjoys being in the mix. He enjoys connecting with players. He also enjoys building a social media brand. And that is both fun and a business, I think, for him. So that is part and partial with his spending.
17 million people on Instagram. I want to mention that. Carmelo Anthony only has 8 million. You guys mentioned that in the piece. I thought that was like, wow, what a juxtaposition there. Wow.
So, he wanted Syracuse basketball to win, right? But that was not like his only, thing that he was trying to accomplish. He was trying to have all of that. And his motivation was not solely to help Syracuse basketball win. It was, all of it. And I think there was the university wanted him to be a more typical donor, I think, which is, university first, do it our way, do the things that we want versus the things that you want. And right. Adam thought there was value in bringing the celebrities. The attention that came with it. The players enjoyed meeting those guys. I will always remember the Jimmy Fallon, Tom Brady game. That is Adam's perspective, that bringing those guys brought a lot of value. The university is like, our team wasn't very good. It didn't help us win any games. And, it created pileups in the dome. So the university saw it in some ways almost as
traffic issue. I mean, come on,
inconvenience.
Oh, come on.
Good grief.
And that's the way they described it. Again, that's how far off they are, right? And how they sort of viewed his presence as a benefit.
What's interesting
Chris,
is the university has. Sorry, Boy Green. The university has definitely, and I'm an alum, so I'll speak of them frankly. I often feel that they have an ivory tower mentality. The fact that Kent Severud has never even talked to Adam Weitsman, to me, is ridiculous. I mean, if there isn't any more ivory tower than that, I don't know. A chancellor that doesn't appear on shows. We've never had him on our sports show. I've been on the air 23 years here at Syracuse on the radio before we started this podcast. I mean, give me a break. I mean, show up for people, be the public. You are the chancellor. Be the face at times of the university. To me, Severud falls far short on that. He may be a very, very smart man. He may know a lot about running a university, but he doesn't know diddly, as they say, about PR.
I agree with that. I think the Syracuse perspective is that, again, they draw a distinction between donor and customer, and the chancellor spends time with donors and not customers. I get that to a degree, but like, he's also your best customer for your athletic department. So, and he's bringing Tom Brady to the Dome. Now, he might pay to bring Tom Brady to the Dome, but he is creating that level of attention for you. He has that high a profile. So when you have that type of person around your program, and he has that type of profile, and he's going to be impacting the school in some way, just by his own promotions, it is bizarre to me that like you wouldn't at least have a conversation with that person. So I agree that is one of the more sort of surprising components of this to me.
Yeah, and Chris, again, we're looking at the screen to see that Tom Brady, Julian Edelman, and Jimmy Fallon were all at the Dome. Is still, just look at the photo; it still doesn't even feel real. But you just mentioned a second ago, and I'm kind of curious. Did you guys find the answer? Did Adam Weitsman pay these celebrities to come to the Dome and appearance fees? Because, like, I can't remember if it was in this piece or a previous piece. Like, Tom Brady went into the locker room and fired up the guys with Jim Boeheim. And so they all did some extra stuff and watched the game and things of that nature. But at a bare bones level, did Adam Weitsman pay these celebrities over all these years to show up to these games?
I mean, he's talked about Tom Brady when he was shortly after that appearance, he went on WEEI, I think it was. And he said, yeah, I donated to Tom Brady's charity. Like, that's how that worked. Like, right. Tom showed up and I made a donation to his charity. And that's why he was here. So like, I don't think it's like, hey, here's a check to your personal bank account.
Right.
Thank you for showing up. But it's like, hey, like you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. I'll make a donation to your charity of choice. And talking with Adam over the years about these things, there are some people that he says, it's a more personal type of relationship with. Some of them he says are friends, and others are this arrangement that he had with Tom Brady. I suspect he's not always clear about those things because, it helps the brand for the celebrities to be your friend rather than to be paid to hang out with you. So I don't know the division in terms of that. But he said with certain celebrities that it's a charitable donation to like their cause of choice.
Did Chris, you guys, you and Mike Waters, because it's not mentioned in the piece, attempt to reach out to Jim Boeheim and talk to Jim Boeheim at all about his relationship with Adam Weitsman and how that might tie into all of this?
That is a good question. Mike and I had a division of labor, and Jim was not on my agenda, so I did not.
Okay.
I will own that one.
Yeah, I know. We were going to try and have Mike on here too, so I'm sorry that we weren't able to get both of you on here so that maybe we could get that question answered. But it's just a curiosity to me because I've always kind of, just as a human being thought, how did this relationship begin, and why is Jim allowing a guy to be so close to the bench in terms of his courtside seats, literally right next to him? It just indicates, hey, he's my pal, he's my buddy, he's my guy. And it seems that they are buddies. Even in the post-coaching career, Jim Boeheim has been seen with Adam Weitsman. So I believe they are some sort of friends, correct?
I mean, there's certainly a relationship, between the two that Adam talks about more freely than Jim does. But yeah, they've been seen together, dinner photos. If there wasn't one, I suspect Jim would have said so by this point. I mean, Adam did stuff for the university. We talked about the size of the payments. Like, he was also paying athletes at a time where it seemed like nobody at the university was. Right. So he was sort of a guy that did step up into a void. And Syracuse probably wishes it was somebody else, wishes it was a lot more somebody else's, but he was sort of the guy that they had.
Again, we're speaking with Chris Carlson here, and the full article to the piece that both Chris Carlson and Mike Waters put together is in our YouTube description down below. So, guys, make sure you check out the full story. Again, behind Adam Weitsman's breakup with Syracuse University, money, image, and a need for control here on the show. Chris, you mentioned that you and Mike sort of, tag team this and split it up. How did you guys split up a piece of this magnitude and you take this pile, Mike takes this pile? How did that splitting up work, and what did you guys split up?
We when we went out to interview Adam, we sort of did that together. Just I had more of a background of Adam from when I was covering the Syracuse basketball program, but Mike was really the motor for the story, who saw that the conversation was reemerging. He did the story on Syracuse's NIL woes. And then, there was sort of a wave of activity that picked up on that questioned Adam's presence. And Mike was the one who was like, hey, everybody else is talking about it. Like, we need to see if these sides are ready to have the conversation. Adam went on the Atan Thomas show and showed more willingness to sort of discuss the breakup and say more than he had previously. So we reached out to Adam then, and I think around the same time, the school probably saw that the conversation wasn't going to die down organically, and that they wanted to put some facts forward.
Talking with Chris Carlson, Syracuse.com, on the Adam Weitsman story and his, falling out with Syracuse University. Today's broadcast is brought to you by our friends at Play It Again Sports. Let's just take 30 seconds and hear from our friends at Play It Again.
Warm weather sports season is here, and if you want to gear up and save money on some of the top brands of golf, soccer, and baseball equipment, and much more, Play It Again Sports can be your solution. With both new and gently used gear, Play It Again has prices way less than regular retail stores. And for all you golfers out there, get some quick money for those clubs you've got stashed away and are collecting dust. Play It Again is always looking for quality gear. No appointment necessary. Just bring it into the store. Play It Again Sports in the DeWitt Town Center on Erie Boulevard. Don't spend more. Play it again. Play It Again Sports. Syracuse.com.
All right, we're back with Chris Carlson. Chris, another thing that wasn't mentioned in the piece, and I am very curious why you guys didn't bring it up in the piece. It has been written about before. As a matter of fact, I was reading a really good piece by one of your writers, Dave Tobin, back in 2023 about Adam Weitsman's conviction. He did plead guilty to 86 felony counts of bank fraud. It was a checks kiting scheme, they call it. How come that wasn't talked about in the piece? Did you guys talk to Adam about that at all, in terms of maybe was the university feeling squirrely about essentially getting in bed with a guy who has been convicted of a felony?
Adam has been pretty open about talking about that part of his past before. I think we felt like that part of his story was a long time ago. It's fairly well known, I think. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe that was a mistake to not include it, but that was sort of the decision that we came to with our editors, that sort of people know that about him, and he owns that. And the university didn't say that was a reason that they had trepidation, or that a reason that they wanted to keep him, at a distance. It would have been a reasonable explanation, but it wasn't the explanation that they sort of offered.
The university, you mentioned them, so let's talk a little bit about their side of things in terms of their response. Obviously, you interviewed Adam. He provided documents. He talked with both you and Mike. There seemed to be a high level of communication and cooperation. The university did, in its rare form here, respond, but my understanding from the piece is that it was just in written form. Nobody spoke directly to you guys on phone or in, obviously, an in-person interview. Talk about that and the fact that they responded, number one, but in terms of how they responded and how responsive were they?
I mean, I think they were very responsive by their standards. Right. I think they provided a lot of facts and a lot of, laid out the events as they saw them take place. I think they were not inclined to interpret those events or share a whole lot of thinking about why they acted in certain ways. That's my interpretation of sort of the information that they provided and some of the questions that I asked that did not necessarily get a response.
What questions did you not get a response to, Chris?
Things like why, right? That the university told Adam sort of at the end of that season, they were taking away his seats.
Which may have been a last straw, right? I mean, now you're not sitting courtside.
That seemed very valuable to Adam.
Yeah, that's a targeted shot, right? That is right.
That's a little personal. That's
personal.
Personal.
Yeah. And that was the university clearly, the first salvo in distancing themselves, I think, from him. And I am fairly certain. I don't want to swear to it. That right, but the natural question is why did you do that? Right? Why did you make the choice to take those seats away.
Sure.
Because there, had to be some sort of intention. So it was sort of like things like that, right? That maybe didn't, that they were reluctant to provide a frame of mind. And that could be because I was working with spokespeople and they didn't, feel sort of equipped, and it wasn't their place to sort of provide that. Or it could be that the university didn't want to. I'm not sure.
It does seem that there was a groundswell, and continues to be a groundswell from former players. We've heard Eric Devendorf, Tom Thomas speak publicly about how the university, was not fair with Weitsman. Obviously, Jim Boeheim continues his friendship with him. You got to imagine, even though Jim has never said anything on the record, that he's not loving the situation where they've been estranged. And now we have Carmelo Anthony, an influential donor. Can we call him a donor? He's got a building named after him, after all, who is trying to somehow mend this fence. Was very recently down in Skaneateles with Adam Weitsman in one of his restaurants. Talk about that. That's got to be a very, very interesting situation for the university to have Carmelo, a big-time guy whose son is going to be playing basketball here in the fall, seemingly in Weitzman's corner and trying to mend this fence.
I think that's where some of the divide is, right? Like Adam is a Syracuse basketball supporter. He wants the basketball team to do well. He wants to support the guys that he's known with the basketball team. He wants to support his friends. And the university is bigger than a basketball program, right? So where the basketball program might say, hey, everybody is playing in this gray area with the NCAA rules.
Yeah.
If we don't do it, we're going to lose. And we don't want to lose. And the university is saying, we just went through an NCAA investigation. Like, we know what the headlines are going to be if Adam Weitsman is found guilty of, committing NCAA violations by playing in this gray area. We're going to have photos of him sitting right next to the coach. We gave him seats right next to the bench. You want to talk about head coach responsibility. You want to talk about lack of institutional control. We as an institution know exactly how this is going to play out if we get burned playing in the gray area, and that's a risk we don't want to take. And I think the basketball program's like, hey, the NCAA is not punishing anybody, and we're punishing ourselves by not playing in the gray area.
Yeah, and I would say this in reading Tobin's piece from a few years ago. Tobin, and this is all before any of this happens, right? Tobin describes Weitsman as a control freak in his business, all right? That he's got one phone to one ear, another phone to another ear. He's texting somebody else on a third phone. The secretary is yelling instructions at him. Seems like he's very, very hands-on in that scrap metal business that he's made his millions and millions of dollars with. And we know the university is kind of a control freak. So, is this just a battle of egos here? Is this two control freaks that just can't let go of control one way or the other, and maybe no one's to blame other than both of their egos in some way?
Yeah, I think Adam, one of the most interesting things that I think Adam said during our conversations with him was ribbon cuttings are boring.
Good for him. I agree with them, by the way.
I think a lot of people do, which is why they don't get a lot of publicity when they happen. But from the university standpoint, right, there is no greater honor than having like a ribbon cutting for your building, and all the dignitaries come out and they take the gold helmets and they, put the gold shovels in the ground, and like that is a big event.
Or Chris, it's the handing the guy the check at center court or at
handshake, all that,
or at the 50-yard line. We see this at every Syracuse basketball and football game.
Right. And Syracuse wants donors like that, right? It wants its donors who sort of match its mindset, are in alignment with the university and what the university thinks are important. And like, that's not Adam. Like he values his own thing. And I just think the values probably didn't align for this to really work out in a great way.
So, Chris, is this relationship dead? Adam Weitsman, sir, it seems pretty dead right now, but is it officially dead? There's no way that Adam Weitsman is returning as a front-facing contributor to the Syracuse basketball program.
So one of the questions that Mike and I couldn't answer, and I wish the story did, but we couldn't figure it out, is like, we couldn't necessarily figure it out, at least, is what is keeping this from being repaired now?
Right.
Like, why can't you all right, Adam wants to give some money. That would be helpful, right? Some money is better than no money.
Yes.
And the university presumably should want it. So why can't that happen? So I would give the relationship a chance, because it just seems sensible that it would happen, and Adam would take his piece of, appreciation for returning and his gift, and the university would gladly accept the money that he could provide. But there would certainly be a lot of hard feelings to work through. I think on both sides, and the university does have a lot of donors, right? So they don't seem to think that they miss Adam a lot.
Right. One guy. Can I just ask you about Adam? What do you glean in the times that you've spoken to him, including in this piece? What's he like? Is he soft spoken? Is he does he have some swagger and ego to him? I mean, it's hard to put a label on him when you look at him, just physically see him during all those games when he was sitting right next to Jim Boeheim there in the front row. Seems to be kind of on his phone, and he's kind of, there's an aloof quality to him. I don't know if that's the right word. Maybe that's not a fair word, but what is he like? Tell us what he's like. Hard to describe, huh?
He is.
I know he's artsy. He took art history, right? And he went to NYU and CW Post. I mean, what's he doing running a scrap metal company? It just the pieces are so eclectic. That's why I'm asking you this very difficult question. What's he like?
When I talk to him, he often seems very all over the place. Right. When Mike and I first went out to his office, we asked him who he had deals with. And he was like, everybody got a little bit, or a lot of players got a little bit. Buddy got something. Jimmy got something. Elijah got something. And then at the end, he's like, but check with me to make sure my numbers are, call me back, and I'll have the contracts in front of me. And I want to make sure the numbers are right. And then when we called back, Buddy was not on the list. Jimmy was not on the list, and Elijah were not on the list. So it's like, what happened there, right?
That's interesting.
Did you not know who you were paying?
Yeah.
Did you forget? You weren't really trying to lie because you asked us to call you back, but or I don't think you were trying to lie because you asked us to call back and get the numbers right. But what happened?
That's a bit cagey. It's what's going on here, right?
How did that get mixed up? Right, and he is very unique in his dealings with us, because he will talk about things he's planning. Right, he talked about planning to pay athletes $1 million. He planned at one point. He bought a college campus, and he planned to open it was going to be a basketball academy. That did not happen. He has also planned to open restaurants, and those things have happened. So is he just open with us about what he's planning? And sometimes things happen and sometimes they don't. And that's life. Is he misrepresenting things and making him and puffing himself up and appearing bigger than he is? It's very difficult to know, because most, right. And Syracuse University, you look at their MO, they are the exact opposite. They won't tell you anything that they're planning until they're about to do it. So right. It's just very different MOs. And I do think most institutions, most affluent people behave like Syracuse, and they do not behave like Adam for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, and just to latch onto that social media thing. You mentioned 17 million followers on Instagram. This is not a young guy, This is a guy. Do you know how old he is? I don't know how old he is. Any idea how old he is?
I don't know off the top of my head.
It's 57.
All right. I was going to say he's got to be in his 50s, right? So, guy in his 50s, all right, with 17 million Instagram followers. Now, okay, there are people in their 50s that have that, but they're celebrities or they're major, big-time former athletes or something. They have some cachet. This guy's a scrap metal guy, and yet he's got 17 million Instagram followers. So there seems to be some there in terms of him wanting to create some kind of public persona for himself. And again, to use those seats, those courtside seats, well, I know people are thrilled to see Jimmy Fallon and Tom Brady and Allen Iverson and Giannis Antetokounmpo and all the celebrities that he sat there at a Syracuse game. What are they doing at a Syracuse game? Jalen Hurts, what are you doing at a Syracuse game? Adam is sitting right alongside him, and maybe as inconspicuous as he is, he's still getting credit for those guys being there. And that makes me think about what's going on up here and the ego and how that gets fed through things like social media. We know social media, come on, is an ego-driven world. I have 30,000 followers. Look at me. 17 million. Yikes.
He is right. He's a tremendous promoter, and he is a tremendous brander. And there is a lot of sizzle, and right, Syracuse would argue that in this case there was not much stake to go with the sizzle. One of the things we often heard from folks around the university was, right, like, he's doing this more for himself than he is the university, right? And you look at the facts and the figures, and there's a that's a reasonable conclusion to sort of come to, right? That this is more about himself than the university. But like we talked about earlier, like, is there inherently anything wrong with that? A lot of us are about ourselves,
yes,
and do what's best for ourselves, and like, that's human nature. So like should he have to pass a purity test in order to contribute or be valued? That's an interesting, I think, question.
You brought up in the piece the feud with the Lally family. We know their name is on buildings up there, including one of the big athletic complexes. So what's that all about? Why was there a rift there? Can you tell us? And did you speak to the Lollies? Tell us. I don't remember if there was a direct quote or not. So can you tell us a little bit about that piece of your reporting?
So I think that is a piece that we do not know a whole lot about. Like, if I'm being honest, like, there were things playing out publicly on social media. It was sort of impossible to ignore, that they were sort of publicly feuding with each other and exchanging words. But obviously the universities, both Syracuse and the Lallies, have said, like, that they had nothing to do with sort of Adam's departure from the school. Adam thinks it's true, but doesn't know it's true. Okay. He's connecting dots that may or may not connect. So all we really know is that there are ill feelings between the two. The Lallies have minimized his contribution to the university, and certainly have taken offense. Appear to have taken offense to the idea that, right, he managed to brand himself or get himself sort of viewed as Syracuse's number one supporter, when there are folks like them that are contributing far more.
So it's a pissing match, Chris Carlson, to be blunt.
I mean, the Lallies, they're clearly bothered by the fact that he, has not helped much and has gotten credit, right? He was viewed as the savior of the basketball program, or the potential savior, or the reason that it all fell apart. And I think when you look at the numbers, those things certainly aren't true. Yeah. Right. I think he's not the reason they were good, or he's not the reason that they were bad last year, losing his money.
Correct. Like you said, he proposed paying a lot of money, but not. Go ahead, Boy Green.
Right. Yeah, I just want to get this in. What got left on the cutting room floor? This is an awesome piece. Again, there's a direct link in the YouTube description down below for those that are watching on the Manchild Show with Boy Green Digital YouTube channel. If you guys do want to check out the pieces, they are fully linked there. This is a beautiful piece. This is a long piece. It's broken down, but obviously things always get left on the cutting room floor that didn't make the piece. I'm sure you and Mike may have wanted it in there. I won't ask you to speak for Mike, but just for you, Chris, what got left on the cutting room floor that did not make this piece?
I mean, there were certainly there were details. There were certainly details that both sides would have wanted in there. You mentioned earlier in the show the description of Adam's time in prison for check kiting from the 90s. That was an editorial decision that people know that. At one point the story was, that was in the story, but it's like, hey, this thing's like 4,000 words, and we need to find things that we can lose without taking out the meat of the story. And that was one of the things.
And again, I thought Dave Tobin did a great job. Go back and read his piece just a few years ago. It was very good details. I really got some good details out of that piece.
And also, real quick, that is also in the YouTube description down below, the Manchild Show with Boy Green digital YouTube channel. You guys can find that direct link as well. Go ahead, Chris.
Dave, right, that story, I'm going to go on a tangent because, Dave's story was so excellent. But this is why Adam is sort of confusing and impossible to understand. Right, Dave's story was sort of, why are you how you are, right? Why are you so flashy? Why are you so public with everything? And like Adam's response was sort of like, I went to prison for fraud, and like I want people to see that I'm doing good, and that I'm trying to help. The natural instinct when someone is so public about what they're doing good is to assume that they are egotistical and arrogant and self-promoting. It is very easy to view Adam sort of that way. It's also impossible to know it's impossible for me to know what going to prison would do to me in terms of like, right? Like how do I make that up to society? How do I try to get people to talk about me the right way? How do I get people to, how do I make up for that? I don't know how to, right? That's how Adam explains it. And it's like, all right, like I cannot comprehend how I would behave if I went to prison and had to like try to redeem myself from that.
Right. Have that on your record forever. Every time that's brought up, that is brought up with it. So yeah, I can get that. Yeah.
So he's very confusing, right? You can see him both ways, and both sides, like, right, whichever way you want to view Adam, like you can, and you have plenty of ammunition for however you want to view him.
Yeah, I guess I would just question, can you buy a public image? I'll offer this thought. I've just always been, I've been talking about this for years and years and years. So this is not some new epiphany. But it upsets me a lot of times. I've gone to a lot of charity dinners and things. And it seems to me more often than not that, it's the bank president, it's the contributing corporation and their CEO that's getting the Man of the Year award, the Woman of the Year award, the Contributor of the Year award. And I always say, why isn't it the person who volunteered all year long for the organization and worked in the trenches? If Adam wants to improve his public image, my advice to him is, instead of throwing money at things, go work in a soup kitchen. Go do things at the grassroots where people actually see you doing things and donating your time and your personal energy to something that you really care about. I just don't always think that throwing money at something makes you a saint. I think a lot of us.
Although the money's nice. The money's nice for charity.
It is, and charities need money. And I understand why they give those CEOs and those corporations those awards. But at the same time, it bothers me a little bit as a human being. I don't know. That's just a personal philosophy, Chris. You could comment or not comment on that. That's up to you.
I think that's a very valid perspective. As a society, we do right. I work in news, and we can be. Adam is part of this, right? I scratch my head when I see how many people care about, somebody having lunch at a local restaurant who's an actor or an actress, and when we write about like a charity and how few people might read a story about someone who's doing really good in the world. So I think that is astute, and I think it's a good societal thing to ponder.
Thank you for that, Chris. All right, look, it's been a real treat. I know this is a serious story, and a lot of people have been wondering about this parting. I think this piece does a pretty good job, at least, of giving people some of the groundwork. I don't know that we'll ever know every little in and out and what really happened, what didn't happen.
There's a lot of things that we wish we knew, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to BS anybody and tell them this is the complete story. It's as much
Right.
as we could. It's as much
But
as we could
at least
figure out.
it's a story, and it provides some answers, and it does allow the participants, dare I say, to have some sort of say. I would have wished that the university would have been a little more cooperative, that you would have gotten more than just a spokesperson putting some stuff on, typing some answers to some questions.
Right, so they
as you
should
can
think
see,
about it, right? Yeah,
as
right.
you can
'Cause,
see,
like,
look, when we're engaging you here in this very interview, all right, I know that some of the questions are not easy to answer. I mean, we're asking you questions, and you have to watch to your journalistic integrity here, and what can I share with this audience and what can I? This is a public forum. I get all that. And the university at times is going to have to be cagey because they have to be careful about their image. And so does Adam, but it's much more, it's a much better format here to get that kind of stuff, that one-on-one and that talking
Right.
to a person directly.
It's easier for Syracuse. You guys send in your questions. They think about it. How do we want to answer this? Chris, you don't have that luxury right now. We're asking you questions and you have to answer them immediately. That, in an interview setting, that would have been different. So, right, that's a part of it that Lerch is talking about.
Well, it's like a reporter giving someone their questions beforehand. I don't practice that. I don't know if you do, Chris, but I don't believe in that. I say I'll give you an idea of what I want to talk to you about, but I'm not going to give you all my questions and let you write prepared answers. That's why I want to have the conversation. Sometimes I need for you to think on the run. Sometimes I need to be, dare I say, like the attorney going after the guy on the stand and, saying, so you left at what time and then what? I was just watching A Few Good Men the other day, right? And, the guy like, we got a blowout, and how were you in the room if you weren't there? Oh, I didn't never really thought it through that whole thing. So I think that's the way good reporting works. Sometimes we ask surprising questions, follow-up questions, and then people are forced to answer them, and we get a little closer to the truth, dare I say, right?
It is certainly preferable, and we prefer, and at times we'll insist, if you're not going to do an interview, like, we're not interested, right? Like, you're either going to participate fully or you're not. We did think it was valuable. It was, in this case, it was worth,
Yes.
having the university's voice on this and putting some facts to things finally, rather than just having people make assumptions, that it was sort of worth doing it the way that we did it.
Yeah.
And Chris,
All right, well,
I just want to thank you for being so generous with your time. Thank you. This
Yep.
was an important story, so thank you for spending your time with us.
Yeah, and hopefully next time we talk about football or basketball or something fun,
Right, Lerch and seats.
I always prefer the fun
holders.
stuff, but sometimes you got to
Right.
do this tougher stuff. That's just the way the life of a journalist goes, even a talk show host, dare I say. So thank you, Chris.
No problem. Thank you, guys.
All right, there he is, Chris Carlson, Syracuse.com, giving us some love on that terrific story. And again, there it is, behind Adam Weitsman's breakup with Syracuse University, money, image, and a need for control. You definitely should read it if you're interested in the Syracuse sports scene. It has certainly been a lightning rod of controversy in our little town here, and so nice to be able to kind of break that down with Chris and ask Chris, frankly, some tough questions. Those weren't always all easy questions for Chris either.
Definitely not.
All right,
No, definitely not.
Let's do this. I just need a breather. I need to take a sip of water and just take a breath. So let's hear again from our friends at Play It Again Sports, who are sponsoring today's broadcast. Play It Again on Erie Boulevard down in DeWitt.
Warm weather sports season is here, and if you want to gear up and save money on some of the top brands of golf, soccer, and baseball equipment, and much more, Play It Again Sports can be your solution. With both new and gently used gear, Play It Again has prices way less than regular retail stores. And for all you golfers out there, get some quick money for those clubs you've got stashed away and are collecting dust. Play It Again is always looking for quality gear. No appointment necessary. Just bring it into the store. Play It Again Sports in the DeWitt Town Center on Erie Boulevard. Don't spend more. Play it again. Play It Again Sports. Syracuse.com.
Okay, let's talk about some fun stuff now. I'm ready. Like the serious hats off.
Lighten it
I
up.
didn't have a hat on, but the serious hats off, figuratively speaking. And let's talk about some fun stuff. We're going to do some extensive reports next week. We're going to go inside Jets, Giants, and Bills next week with varying insiders and talk about training camp. Injuries seems to be, of course, cropping up everywhere. Boy Green. Let's start with the Bills, who have had a ton of injuries. The Bills have been nicked and banged in every direction. I'm looking forward to our conversation with whichever Bills insider we end up talking to about, what's the health of this team right now. I mean, getting ready to roll into a season where there are such high expectations for the Bills. Injuries are a big part of their training camp for sure.
That's true. And I'll get to that in just a second. I want to give a shout out to everyone that's watching the show. Make sure you guys like the video, hit subscribe. We're streaming live on the Manchild Show Boy Green Digital Facebook page, my YouTube channel, and the Manchild Show Boy Green Digital YouTube channel. I see we have Badshaw in here. So he's saying, morning, fellas. He loves the Browns hat. Again, this is a Syracuse hat, not a Browns hat, but thank you very much.
Yeah, it's got that Cleveland Brown look to it, but yes, it is.
It does.
Is that
and
the
they don't even
there too? Is that of the 44?
That is the 44.
Yeah.
And they sold it for They sold it for a very brief period of time, and now they don't sell it. And people ask me about it all the time when I'm walking around town. They're like, oh, my God, where did you get that hat? And I'm glad that it's such an exclusive item. But, Lerch, earlier on my morning Jets show, Badshaw sent in a super chat, so he got a raffle ticket for the Jets-Cowboys contest. But his question was, are we going to do a full breakdown for Snoopy Bowl week? And, of course, he's talking about the Jets-Giants preseason game. There will also be joint practices on both sides. The Jets will host the Giants one day, and then the following day, the Giants will host the Jets. Are we going to do a full breakdown of the Snoopy Bowl in a couple of weeks? Because that, Lerch, will probably be the primo Giants preseason game in terms of both of our starters playing the most amount of time in the preseason too. So there should be a lot of juice. Will we be breaking it all down that week?
Yeah, sure. You want to break it down? We'll break it down. I mean,
Great.
I mean, just because we're going to kick the tar out of you all over the field, what's the difference? I mean, see a little Abdul Carter in your backfield, perhaps. That might be a regular thing. It's interesting just to jump over to that for a second, since I mentioned Carter. Yeah. Reports out of camp have been absolutely glowing about him, and this actually reminds me of the same kind of reports that were coming out of Dallas Cowboys camp when Micah Parsons indeed did arrive from Penn State. And unfortunately, Dallas took him instead of the Giants, as we traded down in that draft. To regret I'll forever have. Maybe the Giants have their redemption here. The same kinds of things that were being said about Micah are being said about Abdul Carter here. I know that they're playing each other, yada, yada, but it was the same kind of dialogue is happening, which is kind of exciting to me.
Would this be redemption? Because you guys could have had Parsons and Abdul Carter together.
Let's not get greedy. I mean, if we can make up for our past sins, I'll take that.
I see. Okay.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, but I'll never forget. You know me. That thing's been hanging over my head for years. I'm beside myself what they did in that draft, and But hey, Dave Gettleman was running the show. What do you want?
Yeah, there you go. Well, I'll answer your Bills question. They have been doing with a lot of injuries, obviously, in a matter of days. What's today? Wednesday. So I guess 6 days. Hard Knocks, the first episode of the Buffalo Bills offseason training camp with the Buffalo Bills, comes out next Tuesday. And injuries like Maxwell Hairston, their first-round pick, they're relying on Maxwell. He has a real chance to be their second corner starter outside of Christian Benford, and he's battling with Tre'Davious White, the old-school veteran. And there's an injury there. He had to be helped off the field. We'll see with injury report updates to see if there's anything else. If there is anything live, as we're live on this show, I'll definitely give updates. But, yeah, the Bills are going through it. And, Lerch, when the pads come on, this is an inevitable next step that people get hurt.
Yeah, and no doubt about it. And that's a big one for the Bills, and they've had some other nicks and cuts. This has been some interesting kicker news going on with your Jets. What's going on with your kicker situation? Did I hear Nick Folk is back in camp with the Jets? Let's talk about that.
He is. I will tell you that when that news came across, so first it came out that the Jets worked him out, and I'm like, what year is it? I'm like, Nick Folk. Like, are you?
Has he been up to? Is he like Ali Haji Sheik? Has he been selling used cars on some lot in New Jersey? I mean, where's he been?
Yeah, so he was with the Jets, for people who don't know, for 7 seasons, a long time. From 2010 through 2016, he was the Jets kicker, and then they parted ways, and he's bounced around the league. As a matter of fact, he's not been on some couch. He hasn't been at a used car dealership. He, over the last 2 years, which is basically, I guess, football Siberia, he's been the kicker for the Tennessee Titans. And here's this, Lerch, which is sort of incredible. Over the last 2 years, he has led the NFL in field goal conversion rate. He's been the best kicker in the NFL over the last 2 years in field goals. He's had a 95 and 96% conversion rate. He was 29 of 30 2 years ago and 20 of 22 or 21 of 22 last season. So he's been really good. The only problem is, and why it would lead to him remaining a free agent in a league where everyone needs really good kickers, is he's older. He's 40, and Aaron Glenn has normally hated old people. He doesn't have a lot of older players on the roster. So he's the only player that's 40 years of age. He's the oldest player now on the team. And he was coming off a groin injury last year, but he and his agent say that he is fully healthy, and he apparently he must be because the Jets signed him. So he is on the roster battling it out with Harrison Mevis, who got the nickname the thicker kicker because of his fat, portly body, being a kicker from the UFL last year. So I fully expect Nick Folk to be the starting kicker for the Jets, which, again, if you would have told me that a couple of months ago, it would have been hard to believe. But, yeah, Nick Folk's been playing really well. So there's a good mix, Lurch, of nostalgia and also the other side having a kicker that could get the job done.
I always love having those veteran kickers, right? The Giants got a veteran a few years ago. Why is the name
Graham
escaping me?
Gano?
Yeah, Graham Gano. And it was just like, okay, he's a retread. He's been here, and he was just rock solid. So, it's nice to get those guys that have the experience, that have kicked in pressure situations. And did the Jets let a kicker go too? Did they have a young kicker that they let go?
They did. Yeah, by the way, Nick Folk earned the nickname during his heyday with the Jets, Folk Hero, for his clutch ability kicking field goals. And yes, they cut undrafted rookie free agent Caden Davis, who a lot of people were high on. A lot of people thought he might win the kicker job outright.
Wow.
And he got cut yesterday, so he got dumped. And again, the Jets have a lot of inexperience. So put Nick Folk aside, who they just added. At punter and kicker this offseason, they have added guys that have never kicked or punted in an NFL game. And last year, they had two veterans, Thomas Morstead and Greg Zuerlein. Both are some of the most longest tenured special teamers in the NFL. So Aaron Glenn made a clear and obvious change going from the old to brand new fresh. And it looked brand new fresh, Lurch, at the beginning of camp. The kickers and punters were struggling mightily. And I think that led AG to say, okay, enough playing around here. Is there somebody out there that can help? And obviously, Nick Folk checked that out. And I see Badshaw, given old memories, love Folk Hero. He won that game in Indianapolis. Yes, that was the wild card round where the New York Jets made a comeback against Peyton Manning, and Nick Folk kicked a field goal to win the game and send them to the divisional round against the New England Patriots.
And, I said I want to get to the fun stuff, but there is a serious story that I can't ignore if we're going to talk today, and that is the shooting in New York. There was an active shooter, guy just, came across the country. He was working in Las Vegas and living in Las Vegas. He packed a machine gun and, or some kind of badass rifle and came all the way across the country. Apparently he was mentally disturbed in some way. We're going to find out, I think, in the coming weeks whether he had CTE, because that was part
he claimed
of what
he did.
Yeah, yes. Part of what his suicide notes, one left in Vegas, one that I guess he had on his person. He did take his own life after this incident, but the incident was an awful one where he shot several people, and apparently his target was the NFL headquarters in New York, and he was in the building where the NFL houses a piece of their headquarters. I don't know if it's the full headquarters or not. I was trying to read up on that.
Yeah, so they have their headquarters. It's the floors 4 through 8 are their NFL New York headquarters. So that's their
main where Roger Goodell sits. I was trying to find out, is it actually where Goodell sits?
Yes, it is.
When he's in the office, if he's in the office,
right? Well, I guess again, it's sort of a rotating office because the NFL have several things. But yes, I believe that is where Roger Goodell sits most of the time when he's not doing his other, esteemed activities.
So anyway, this mentally disturbed individual with a gun went to New York City, and he, luckily for the NFL offices, not luckily for other people, luckily for the NFL offices, he went to the wrong floor. All right, got on an elevator that didn't take him to the floors where the NFL offices were, which is what his intention was. I guess his claim was, I had CTE. I got it when I played high school football. And
he did not play in the NFL.
Right. He's not right. He's not been a professional player. He did play in high school. I saw pictures of that. I actually saw his high school coach was actually interviewed yesterday. I got to look at that. But long story short, his intention was to go to the NFL headquarters and shoot people there. There was somebody associated with the NFL that actually was shot and injured, I believe. And there were a few people that were killed too. So just an awful, awful thing. Another one of these terrible shootings that I wish we never had to talk about again in our lifetime. But the reason I bring it up on this show, obviously, is because this was NFL targeted, and it was specific to this guy claiming he had CTE. Now, whether he was just mentally ill and didn't really have CTE, and this was just, something that he had affixed to his brain and somehow, we don't know. I guess we're going to find out in the coming days, because you cannot diagnose CTE until you're, an autopsy till you are dead.
Normally not, although
Yeah.
there are some new studies, Lurch, that are actually.
I guess they're trying
Yeah.
to, right, which wouldn't it be
Yes.
better to know that someone,
Whoa, of course.
has CTE while they're on the planet before terrible things happen? So,
Right.
yeah.
Like this gunman, for instance, did not shoot himself in the head because he wanted his brain to be evaluated. So as he killed himself, apparently he killed himself. I think it was a shot wound to the chest. But just to, and yes, there is a member of the NFL league office. They're leaving the name private for obvious reasons, but they're in critical condition. So we'll see what happens there from that National Football League person. The thing, Lurch, it just bothers me, for lack of a better word. There's a lot of things, obviously, that bother me about this very disturbing, senseless tragedy.
Yeah.
Is that, a lot of us, to continue to live our lives, have either subconsciously or consciously desensitized ourselves to say, oh boy, another shooting. And we just to survive, to not let it drain our brains every day, thinking about all the horrific stuff that happens in this world. So, that in another week, are we even talking about this? And that's the sad thing to me, because obviously these things keep happening. We need to do something to stop it. And apparently this gunman individual had a history of mental illness. So how did this individual purchase a gun? Who was responsible for giving him the gun? So, and again, we're treading in waters that we normally don't swim in, and beyond sports here. But I just want to say the story is incredibly sad. My thoughts and love are sent out to everyone who their families that were affected, for those that passed away, and for those that were seriously and critically injured, and for the NFL people, right? Oh my God. And apparently they were trying to do things to bar the door, pushing up couch cushions against the doors to try to lock it. That's going to affect these people for the rest of their lives. They were going to be hunted by this deranged man, as he had some mission on his mind of something to do. It's scary to see the security cam footage of this guy carrying this big gun walking around in the middle of the day is incredibly scary. And life is so fragile. So the good thing about this show that I said on my Boy Green Daily show a couple days earlier this week when it happened is that I pride myself on my show being an escape for people. I normally don't, not normally. I don't talk politics. I don't talk anything else on my show but Jets and some NFL and goofy stuff about my family that comes up. And I try to allow the show to be an escape. I'm rooting for Green Team, and I'm some crazy rabid fan. I hope Green Team beats Blue Team this week. And I try to make it very simple so people could get away from the craziness of the world and could get away from the craziness of all of our lives. We always have things going on in our lives, and I hope it can be an escape for people for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, what have you. But every once in a while, Lurch, to your point, there are serious issues.
Yeah.
To give a tip of the cap to on the show. And again, it's just sickening. There's just no other way. There was another shooting in Vegas on the other side in a completely unrelated scenario. And again, we're up, another shooting. And we've just sort of come to accept that part's a sad part for me.
No, it is. It's one of the reasons why I think when I got out of journalism school at Syracuse, the thought was go into news because there are way more jobs. There's more news agencies, there's no news stations, so on and so forth. If you're an ample reporter, why not go out and do the news? There's more places to get jobs. There might even be more money in it. And I was like, no, thank you. I just don't want to cover these kinds of things. I don't want to be knocking on doors of families after they lose loved ones. I don't want to be covering, assassinations. I just don't want to be. There's nothing appealing, to that. It's like some people are squeamish. They can't be a doctor, right? I see the sight of blood. My sister's a nurse. She works in a preemie unit. There's nothing that woman couldn't see. I mean, she, I could be bleeding all over the place. She'd be there patching me up. She was bleeding. I'd scream, someone help. I can't do anything. What do you want me to do? I'm going to faint, if I see blood coming out of somebody. So, we're not all wired to do the things, I guess God had an intent for all of us, right?
Sure,
so,
right. Yeah.
And like you, I enjoy sports, which is primarily entertainment, but we do from time to time, unfortunately, get into stories and out of necessity that are not just about entertainment, that are about real life and and loss and tragedy. And certainly we've seen plenty of that, the whole study of CTE. For those of you that have listened to the radio show over the many, many years, we've talked about it. We had Dr. Amalu on our show.
We did.
And had a very long, like hour-long conversation with him about CTE, and to hear his viewpoints as stringent and strong as they were. I mean, that was like some tough love, like, wow. Hey, Dr. Amalu, what can football do? I'll tell you what football can do, fellas. Stop playing football. We're like,
right.
But Doc, it's football. What do you mean? Listen, that's the end of CTE. If you want to stop, this is how you stop it. It was very black and white to him, and to us as, sports guys and football fans,
right.
we were like, are you crazy? We know he's not crazy. We know that he has,
of course, research
and this is a serious issue, and it is taking people's lives, and it is damaging people's lives and families, but we like the game too much. So
we do.
It's that balance, what do you do? So.
And I would just say in that same breath, because obviously this is sort of involved in, it's claimed to be involved in this issue that CTE happened here. I want to make this incredibly clear that CTE is incredibly serious. And there's been books written that I've read. There are documentaries that I've seen about this where, CTE, if that occurs, which is repeated brain rocking around in the brain, essentially in layman's terms, of that happening. And thus, it could cause people to do crazy things. And I've heard all kinds of stories. I do want to say this is a very serious issue. We need to continue to develop technology. To your point, Lerch, people are trying to have different studies where you can check for CTE while the person is still alive to see if there's anything you can do if a person is acting not normal, and is there a way to help fix or develop things, and the advancements of medical technology hopefully can help. So again, I don't want
a treatment plan, be aware and alert that this person could be someone who's suicidal or could do something a little bit out of character. I mean, I always, Junior Seau is always the person I think of. I don't know why I do, but just, because he was, as a player, as a personality, so full of life, so, so much positivity there. And the fact that he goes the way that he goes, and that he was obviously living in this very deep, dark place, is really scary, because we came to know him in the public spotlight as something very, very different. Hep makes a great point here, and thanks for chiming in, Hep. NFL has to do more with former NFL players, and I do agree with that. I know it's hard sometimes to put the cork back in the bottle, but the NFL makes a lot of money, and they need to take some of that money. And they need to invest it in their former players and the damage that has been done to those players as they work on what we hope are better and better solutions for players that are playing the game now and that will play the game even 5-10 years from now.
The good news is that, it can't correct what has already happened in the past, but the NFL reached a multi-billion-dollar settlement to basically retroactively pay players that had concussion medical issues and things of that nature. So there is money to start to help those players. But to Hep's point, even that's not enough. We have to do more for the past, do more for the current and the future, because the past is soon going to be the present will soon be the past, and then the rock keeps rolling down the road of shifting categories for all these players. So we all need to do better. There's no question about it.
Yeah, that's a definite. And, we would like it to not have to be lawsuits, but rather to be, let us create a fund. Let us
voluntarily, right?
Yeah,
not twisting arms.
Let's take some of our money and invest it in people that helped us get to this point, because we all know the players today get paid so much better than the players of, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I mean, gosh, we go back 40 or 50 years ago, you're like, what were these guys even doing playing football for that kind of money? Because what the money is now, and you say, okay, now it might be worth, whatever could happen later, whether it's damage to my body, damage to my head, to make that kind of money and to have that kind of life for my family. Some people would trade, dare I say, years off their life for a better life. I think there would be people in the world that would say that. I'm not saying that everyone would, but I'm saying there would be some people. Those guys back in those days, weren't making this kind of money. And so, let's take some of this kind of money and help those guys. I think you should always do that. So
Amen.
we'll see if football continues to do that. Hey, on the lighter side of things, so what's up with Justin Fields' foot? Is that thing getting better? Apparently he's not liking all these questions about the foot. Let's talk about it.
That's true. So yesterday he did his standard media press conference with the local media following training camp practice, and then he did some hits. Kay Adams of Up and Adams was there yesterday doing her live television show with Quinnen Williams, Sauce Gardner, and Justin Fields came over. And yeah, they both confirmed after talking back and forth at the beginning of the interview that Justin Fields would no longer like to talk about this toe situation. So what the Jets have done is they've placed a plastic hard shell over the cleat, over the toe area. So if anyone was to step on it, the plastic part would not give. It's essentially a steel toe, and that it would not give. And he's going to be wearing that for the next couple of weeks. The good news is it wasn't something more serious. Justin Fields said he was very relieved. And as T-Town Jet says, guys, make sure you guys hit the like button if you guys are watching on YouTube. We appreciate it. So, yeah, Justin Fields was very relieved that it wasn't more serious. He said at first when he got his foot stepped on, he fell down to the ground. It's like, whatever. We get stepped on all the time. He kept walking around. He's like, something feels very weird in there. And then that's how the whole cart thing happened. They got x-rays and MRIs. And he said his phone was blowing up of people saying, oh, my God, are you all right? And so he went through it. But, yeah, Justin Fields doesn't want to talk about it anymore. And the good news is that people are going to talk about it a lot less. I don't know if he can remove social media and New York media, social media and the New York's media from not talking about it. But him running around, he doesn't seem to have a noticeable limp. It doesn't seem like he's having any issues. He was mobile yesterday, ran for a 45-yarder in practice, so that's good news. So all of that will help curtail it. Thankfully, I and the rest of the Jet fans in this chat right now, they know the troubled and checkered history the Jets have had with quarterback injuries, and I'm glad that Justin Fields, his chapter, seems to be closed on this toe thing, thankfully.
And I'd like to thank Badshaw, a Jets fan, asking about the Giants. How have the Giants QBs been looking in practice? Any future YA tittles out there? Love the old school reference. The bloody picture, never to be forgotten, of YA Tittle, a once great Giants quarterback. Reports are as follows. Number one, the Giants are throwing the ball down the field in training camp. And Russell Wilson is a guy who has known to be able to get the ball down the field. And when you've got a Malik Neighbors among your receivers, and when you've got some other speed threats, which the Giants do have, I think that's something that's pretty cool. I think because Daniel Jones was just very hesitant to really throw the ball down the field deep. I think that's something that could really change the Giants offense dramatically. Reports have been pretty good out of Giants camp on Jackson Dart, like any rookie. Some days he's out there making mistakes, but he's had a couple of really good practices. One in particular, again, we'll talk with our Giants insider next week and get some insight as to how that's going day to day and how many reps indeed Jackson Dart is getting, because we know he's not getting the reps with the ones. Is he getting any reps with the ones? Is he solidly the two? Because the thought here is that it's going to be Russell Wilson, the starter. That's already been announced. That Jameis Winston will be number two. So really, the anticipation is not to see Jackson Dart hit the field unless things go terribly wrong for the Giants and they're forced to turn the page, dare I say, and move forward. So, he's a quarterback in development. And frankly, if I were given the choice 9 out of 10 times, that's what I would want. I like guys that have a chance to absorb the offense, to understand pro football, and to make that adaptation before they even get on the field, rather than go out there and get killed and learn on the fly. I don't know. Some coaches believe learn on the fly. I'm not a big believer in that. I'm glad that the Giants are handling it this way and that it seems at this point that they have the pieces to do that. Go ahead, Boy Green.
Yeah, it seems that way. No, I was just going to give some notes from Dan Dugan, who covers the New York Giants for The Athletic. He says that Jameis Winston has been really accurate throughout the entire camp, 21 of 25 through his first 5 practices, but he had a rough practice most recently. It wasn't today. It was the practice yesterday. The Jets and Giants both have a day off today. Jameis Winston was 2 of 9 yesterday. Jackson Dart 2 of 5. Russell Wilson is 7 of 12, and Tommy DeVito 2 of 3. As some of the reps were going around yesterday. So it's been hit and miss for a lot of these quarterbacks. But as Brian Dable said at the beginning of Giants camp, emphatically, Russell Wilson is the starter, and everyone's competing for everything else. I know the Giants caught a lot of jokes for what's going on with this quarterback room? You're getting some repetitive thing already having Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. Why do you need that with? And then you got Tommy. How does all this fit? Too many of this. I will say this: a major credit. I think this entire Giants staff is going to be fired in a couple of months, but for this decision, for this decision in particular, I love it. You insulate a Jackson Dart. You put him over here in a room. You develop him at his own pace. Now, if he's going to Russell Wilson it, let's use Russell Wilson on himself. With the Seahawks signed Matt Flynn to be the starter, Russell Wilson, this random third-round pick, beats him out in camp, and then he's the job. If that happens, you're a happy Giants fan. Holy crap, Jackson Dart was better than we thought immediately. Phenomenal. But I wouldn't rush him out there if I'm the Giants. Let him take his time. Russell Wilson's going to be the starter. Jameis Winston is a fun roller coaster ride. If you've ever been a fan of him on a team, he throws a lot of touchdowns, but a lot of picks. Okay, but keep Jackson Dart developing. He should be the long-term future of the Giants if they do it right.
Look, Patrick Mahomes waited a year.
He did.
The guy could go down. We'll see. He's got a long career still in front of him. He could go down as one of, if not the greatest quarterback in the history of the NFL.
Very
and he
possible.
waited a year. Yeah. I have no problem waiting a year. I don't trust this offensive line. I don't trust a lot of things on this Giants team. I don't want this guy wrecked. What I want him is to be given confidence, be given security, be given everything that he needs to cultivate and maximize whatever his potential is. And hopefully that potential is good enough to be a franchise quarterback, because that's what every team in the league wants. They want to draft their next franchise quarterback, especially when you don't have one.
Amen.
Do it, man. Do it. So I think, the Giants are going to be interesting with Russell, but how long will it last? How long will it hold up? I kind of wish as a Giants fan that it holds up for a while so that this guy gets a chance to develop and he's not forced in, because I do see this coach and this GM at some point, if things are going horribly wrong early in the season, and we know how tough a schedule the Giants have, getting desperate. Desperate times call for desperate measures. I got to save my job. This is my one chance. So let me, great analogy, throw a dart at the dartboard here.
There you go.
Just happens to be his name. And see if I put this guy out there and we show something, say the last 5, 6, 7, 8 games, whatever it is. All right.
Sure. Yeah.
Then maybe my owner says, hey, now wait a minute. They've been doing a great job developing this guy. And boy, he looked like starting to be the real deal here. I better leave this alone. This guy knows their playbook. He works good with this staff. Let's take that into next year, and maybe that becomes the ticket for Brian Daboll staying as the Giants head coach and Joe Shane sticking around as the GM. So I don't know.
That's what they're hoping. Yeah.
The Giant coaching staff and management, their GM in particular, are in a really tough spot this year. Really tough spot, and I don't know how they climb out of it. I'm not sure.
They should have fired him months ago, Lerch, because if they fired him months ago, because this is the Chicago Bears situation. The Bears kept Matt Eberflus a year longer than they should have. They draft Caleb Williams. Matt Eberflus inevitably gets fired. They hire Ben Johnson, and now Caleb Johnson is, as one insider described it on the Rich Eisen show, he's trying to drink out of a rampant fire hose. So he's been struggling in camp with all the offensive stuff they've been throwing at him. Again, take a step back here and reverse it. If the Giants have a brand new staff right now, whoever the hell it is, it doesn't matter. Jackson Dart, rookie, and this new staff are paired together. They're starting on the same brick. Their best interest is developing this quarterback they just chose. The next regime is not going to be tied to Jackson Dart. And I don't know. To me, it just would have made more sense to have a clean break, because John Mara did not seem to have. If you're going to hire someone or fire someone, whatever, man. But at least to me, you have a clear vision. John Mara, hey, what do they need to do? Be better than last year. Whatever words he said. I want to be tickled. I want to be impressed by whatever they do. It wasn't a playoff mandate, but it's better than last year. So, it's this amorphous, vague vision of I have no idea what it is, and that must be difficult for this Giants brass that is clearly on the hot seat. It's very bizarre.
But we have seen this staff, Boy Green, have a good season with a mediocre quarterback.
Sure.
So there is some belief that Brian Daboll actually can be a good head coach. And I think actually, for the most part, Joe Shane's drafts have been pretty solid. I mean, they got a lot of players on the playing field out of last year's draft. And
Evan Neal's been awful, but boy,
Yeah, right. There have been you can't hit on everything. Neil's been a
I
disaster. I was
suppose.
just reading a piece about him this morning. Actually, he's moved to tackle now. He's accepted it.
Or a guard,
And
right?
guard. I'm sorry. Yes, he's moved to
Yeah.
guard, and he's accepted it. And he's being a team guy, and he has high hopes, and is talking about how he's improving every day. I mean, I don't know. He's been so bad. There's no way to go but up, Evan.
Yeah.
But
Right.
considering where that guy was picked in the draft, being a top 10 draft pick,
Yeah.
and at this point, he's absolutely a bust. I mean, it's gonna take a lot for him to revitalize his career. They imagined him as being the bookend to Andrew Thomas on the other side, and we were gonna have these two young guys for the next 10, 15 years. And now one guy that they can't even figure out whether they can get him on the field in another position because they have to protect him from himself. So it's just ick. And
another Eric Flowers, Lerch.
Feels that way. But no,
We'll see if he turns it around.
Shane really has had some good draft picks.
Sure.
So, I think he knows what he's doing. I think Dable knows what he's doing.
All right.
I like, me, I'm a continuity guy. So I'm not going to go. It's got to go. I got to really see ineptitude. I've got to see real damage before I say, all right, get out of this. It's time to get out.
Did you see any damage last year, Lerch?
Maybe sometimes I take too long to see the forest through the trees.
Yes.
But I just don't think they've been dealt a good deck. And, I want to see what they can do when they actually get the right players on the field, that they can coach good players. I just don't think they've had enough good players. So it's hard to put the record, just to me, strictly on the coach or the GM or both. I don't know.
Well,
and I hate change. Again, I say, fine, want to make change? You're Mr. Change? Go ahead, make change. Who? Yeah. Who we getting? Who's our savior, Boy Green? Who's our next guy? We want the next Bill Belichick. Who is he?
Tom Coughlin. Give me Tom Coughlin. Let's bring Tommy back.
We have to go backwards in order to go forward. See, that's never good when an organization does that. That's the Cleveland Browns. Pick those organizations that have struggled forever and ever and ever. Please don't do this to me. Don't do it.
Yeah, I would just say this. I think the biggest mistake this current Giants regime made, and it continues to haunt them every year at Halloween time, is giving Daniel Jones the record-breaking deal and thus playing the game with Saquon Barkley, which set them off for everything. By paying Daniel Jones, they didn't pick another quarterback. They would have had a different plan to go for quarterback, and it's the NFL. If you put this one rock in the pond, all these ripples happen, and you can't unwork the ripples unless you take that rock back out. So paying Daniel Jones the crazy money that they did on the 4-year deal, $160 million, and then putting them in a position where they now were married to Daniel Jones, that quarterback, and then the Saquon situation. I just think it all blew up there. That's where it went wrong. But again, maybe it's not too late.
Yeah, I think that you point out, I think the three huge mistakes. One, drafting Evan Neal, terrible mistake.
Obviously. Oh, God.
All right. But I see every staff out there. We could probably find a guy who was drafted relatively high that has been a bust in the last few years. I mean, it's hard to avoid them. You miss every so often. You just can't afford to miss over and over again. That's a trend. One miss, is not the end of the world, but miss a bunch of times, and that's a trend, especially when you miss in the top 10. It just really, really stings.
Yeah, he was Lerch. He was the 7th overall pick. Here are some of the players the Giants passed on. So Drake London, he's been a star receiver for the Falcons. Garrett Wilson,
you got to do this, right? You have to do this.
He's been great. Kyle Hamilton has been an All-Pro. Jordan Davis has been great for the Philadelphia Eagles. Trent McDuffie is going to be one of the highest-paid corners in football from Kansas City. He looked great, like Lerch. I mean, there is a list of guys here that we're like, oh boy. George Karlaftis just got the bag from the Chiefs. He has like 40 sacks over the last 3 years. Like, oh boy. Long list, Lerch. Long list.
I know. But, patience. I like patience.
And
I like stability.
Sure. Okay.
I think those that do that are the ones that last. And those that panic are the ones that constantly find themselves at the bottom of the barrel, constantly seeking constant change and panic is bad. You can't panic. But
all right, Lerch.
You do have to see the forest through the trees.
Let's work in some trivia action here on the show. Okay, so Badshaw is asking the question: what are the standings of teams with the most Super Bowl wins? And so obviously you've got Pittsburgh at the top. They have 6 world championships. New England, obviously you have them in there. So what are the standings? You have Giants, Packers. Giants have the Giants have 4. Cowboys have 5. That's another one you aren't talking about. The 49ers have 4 championships, or 5 actually.
Might be
Right,
5, yeah.
4 with Joe Montana, 5 with Steve Montana. So yeah, they have 5. So that's a lot of them. I'm trying to see if I'm missing anybody else up there. No, I think that's everybody. Yeah, you got Pittsburgh,
you got Packers, right?
New
4.
England. Yeah, Packers are in there.
Chiefs are at 4 now too.
Yes, right. Yeah, because Patrick Mahomes. Yep.
Chiefs are 4.
Okay. Yep. Right. There you go. So that's a bunch of them out there. But Cowboys is the one you're missing. They have 5. So that's another team that's up there. And 49ers are another one, obviously.
Right now,
that's
Steelers, Patriots tied most with 6.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
and
funny.
then
Reason I was just looking at that last week. I was just, I was
Mhm.
like, Super Bowl's won by teams. Let me get myself, plugged in here coming into football season. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right.
All right, Lerch, I'll give you a question right now. Okay.
Mhm.
Who's a team that has never won a Super Bowl that will win it first? Okay. So I will give you,
You know, choices.
Yeah, sure. You can, anyone that have not won a Super Bowl before. And here is the list of teams that have never won a Super Bowl. That list includes
which one of these is going to win one first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Who's going to win it first? So you have the Arizona Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The Atlanta Falcons, the Buffalo Bills, the Carolina Panthers, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Cleveland Browns, the Detroit Lions, the Houston Texans, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Chargers, the Vikings, and the Titans. That is 12 teams that have never won a Super Bowl. Who wins one first? And by the way, here's another fun fact. These 2 teams have the most losses without a win. That is the Buffalo Bills and Minnesota Vikings, who each have 4 losses. Bills lost 4 in a row, and Vikings, they're 4 not in a row, but they lost 4. So which of those 12 teams, Lerch, who's going to be the first one to win it?
The answer is not going to be some, godsend here. I mean, it's between 2 teams.
Okay.
For me, and they're both on the precipice, in my opinion.
All right.
One is obviously the Bills, and
all right,
what they still have. They have the quarterback to get them there. The question is, can they have the good health and the right moxie and the right season? And of course, they've got to, they've got to tame the elephant. They have to get past Kansas City, and that's, sometimes you get stuck. I remember the Knicks. I'm a diehard Knicks fan. The Bulls, Michael Jordan. It just couldn't get past that elephant.
Wrong place, wrong time. Right.
And they got one swing at it, and they didn't do it. They lose
against Houston
to the Houston Rockets in the championship, and that was only because Jordan wasn't in the game. Otherwise, he would have been Jordan.
Right. He was retired for those 2 seasons.
They couldn't get over that hill, and the question is, can the Bills get over the hill that is the Kansas City Chiefs?
Okay. So the Bills are one of them. Who's the other team?
But I think the team I would pick, I want the Bills very, very badly for their fan base, especially. We're here in Central New York. We hear from Western New Yorkers all the time. We have a ton of Bills fans here. So I just really, really feel for them. And they're in this little small market compared to other markets. It'd be such a good story for their fan base. So I really, really would love to see the Bills get it done. But there's another franchise that to me is just as desperate. They may not have been there 4 times, but that's the Detroit Lions. What Dan Campbell has built there. And they, I think they've got, just another couple of seasons here of Jared Goff playing at a high level. They got a lot of terrific pieces around him. And you have to remember something. I know they went out in their first game. They got the bye and then went out in their next game against the Commanders. But let's not forget that they lost Aiden Hutchinson. Let's not forget that they lost their best defensive player on a defense that wasn't all that great to begin with and was relying on a lot of scheme. I mean, your head coach was running that scheme, and I think he did a terrific job considering the players he had to work with. But when they lost Hutchinson, they lost a huge, huge piece of their team.
Of course.
And now they've had another draft to fortify that defense a little bit more. The sting of what happened to them, I think, is going to be a big motivator for them this season. I think they can do it. I'm going to say the Detroit Lions. I think they can do it either this year or next year. They got a couple more years, I think, of Goff playing at a high level. If you watched Quarterback, and I advise you to watch it second season.
I finished it.
Watching Goff was really inspiring. Like, this guy, he has a chip. He was let go by the Rams the way that trade went, and he ends up in Detroit, and they figured they were sending him to purgatory, and he went there, and they built a championship team around him, or a championship caliber team around him. I want to
Yeah.
see him get it done. I think it would be awesome redemption. I think he's got it in him. And I think that, the team seems to rally around him. So I'm really optimistic that the Lions can get it done. So I'm going to say the Lions hesitatingly because I love Bills and Bills Mafia so much.
Lerch, it's a beautiful story. Jared Goff is such an easy guy to root for. He's got a supermodel wife. He went to Cal, was a number 1 overall pick. I can totally understand why, the common man's man.
Yes, he hasn't had it hard as a human being, but I do think he's had it hard as a player in terms of what happened to him. So, I'm giving him some credit for that. But you're right. I mean, the guy lives a pretty good life. Watch quarterback and be like, I don't really feel that bad for this guy. So I totally agree.
That's for sure. The other team, there's a bunch of teams here. It's 12, obviously. That's a significant portion of the league. I'm going to give a shout out to the Chargers, man. The Chargers always Chargers. They sort of have this star-crossed history. They were in the Super Bowl. They lost to that Steve Young 49ers team as he got the monkey off his back, as he so famously said. Chargers are another team, man. They've got the right coach in Harbaugh. They're tough. They've got an identity. I'm curious if they are a team that gets over the top. You're right. The obvious names are Bills and Lions, but if you're going a little bit deeper, I think Chargers could be the team to keep an eye out for. So, again, if all these teams that have never won a Super Bowl, the Lions have never been to a Super Bowl. The Chargers and Bills at least have been to a Super Bowl. Lions have never even been to one, so it'd be great to see. And this Lions team, Lurch, 2 years ago, 49ers NFC Championship game, if they kick a field goal, they end up going to their first Super Bowl. Who knows what happens in the big game? They don't. Last year, one and done. We'll see what the future holds for Detroit.
Yeah, look, Chargers are not a bad pick because, number one, Harbaugh has been there.
Sure.
Nobody's talking about Justin Herbert. He's just like a forgotten man now. He's just some guy, and he's not. He's a very good quarterback.
The division's tough, though. Chiefs,
the division's
Raiders,
tough. Right. They have the Chiefs
Broncos
to overcome as well. And they, but I like the way that Harbaugh is kind of shaping it. I think he really has a sense of how to build a championship team, even at the NFL level. He obviously did it in college too, at a place that was, starved to get somewhere, and he got them there. So he's a builder of programs. He's a builder of franchises. I have to give Harbaugh's a weird, quirky guy, man, as a human being.
Very bizarre.
But that weird quirkiness works as a coach. Like his players seem to really love him. He seems to really have a sense of how to put the pieces together and create something. He knows the NFL game really well. He's doing all the right things with the Chargers in terms of like establishing that running game, the trenches, man, the trenches. He's a trenches kind of guy. I love that too about him. So the Chargers, that's not bad. Badshaw popped in with the Titans, baby. The Titans, Cam Ward looking good in practice. Gonna give any love to the Titans today?
Probably not, but I will say that
probably not.
Cam Ward is the most slept on number 1 overall quarterback,
Nobody's
arguably in NFL history. No one, and even you, I'm like, Cam Ward, who the hell is that? Yeah. Oh yeah, that number 1 overall pick.
Who drafted him again? Yeah, who drafted him again? Can't remember.
Right, he's going to have his chance to prove the doubters wrong. Now they don't have a single primetime game. I'm pretty sure I remember that on the NFL schedule that came out a couple of months ago. They don't have a single primetime game, so they're going to have to earn their place in the universe. Cam Ward is incredibly talented. Loved him coming out of Miami. And look at him. Think about guys betting on themselves. He considered coming out of the draft, not this past year, the year before. He would have been about a 5th round pick. He decides to transfer, go to Miami, and he's like this Heisman guy throughout the entire season. So, bet on yourself, and he ends up being the number 1 overall pick. So I'm going to be fascinated to see the Tennessee Titans. So it's a fun story. And again, it is true that they are being completely slept on this year. We'll see if he makes us pay for that.
Yeah, that is fascinating. But you're right. I mean, there's just been nothing on him. If anyone needed Hard Knocks, they needed Hard Knocks to get some pub for him.
Sure. But then no one would have watched that either. So I don't know if they would have gotten pub.
I guess.
The Tennessee Titans were on it. But
we always watch Hard Knocks no matter what.
I do. But, like the Buffalo Bills, what a great Hard Knocks choice. That's going to be awesome, sexy, everything. Or the Steelers would have been a great choice as of a disaster, because if it all flops, everyone would have loved that. So,
sure.
But no, it'll be cool. Buffalo, another team that normally does not get the same love that perhaps they deserve versus the Tennessee Titans. We will see them again. That's next Tuesday, first episode.
Yeah. All right. So a lot of good stuff. All right. As they say, we've been at this for an hour 30. I know we spent a good piece of that with our interview with Chris Carlson, definitely worth a watch if you missed it earlier. If you care about anything that's going on in the Syracuse football, basketball, athletics world, very controversial kind of lightning rod story that was put out about something that I think a lot of Syracuse fans wanted to hear about. So if you're interested in that, then you should check out the earlier part of this broadcast. Boy Green, as always, I say to you, final thoughts if you have any, my friend.
Well, I've got two of them. First off, Chris Carlson texted me after we got off because obviously we continued our live show. He wanted to say he wanted to thank us for allowing him on the show and said that we asked excellent questions because he had just done another podcast on this. He's been talking about his story, so I really appreciated how we poked and prodded him basically on a variety of subject matter, and he appreciated the challenge. So he gave a big thank you to that. So salute to Chris Carlson.
We had him thinking a little there. We had him thinking,
which is good.
I think it's good that he took his time and kind of, how do I answer
pondered.
that? How do I answer that exactly?
He's got to wear a lot of hats.
Takes a little time. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got to wear a lot of hats. And the other one is we just booked this interview. Again, I am a multi-talented, faceted guy who's doing a lot of things all at the same time. Dick Scott, we will dive our toe back into the Syracuse Mets waters. Lerch, he will join us for the very first time on the video. The skip of the Syracuse Mets, who won a record-breaking winning streak, their first ever 6-game sweep in franchise history, happened this past week. Unfortunately, they did lose like 1-0 last night, so that was less than ideal. But Dick Scott will join us tomorrow. That'll be great to hear from the skip before the season wraps up because there's only another month and a half and change, Lerch.
Yeah, his first appearance on the pod, so that'll be fun. We always have really good discussions with Dick Scott. So we'll obviously talk about the prospects and the Syracuse Mets players, and in a bigger picture, how that connects to the big Mets. But yeah, we always get into things with him, so I don't know where it's going to go tomorrow. Him and I have had some battles over electronic strike zone
that might come up,
and some other dare I say topicals that come up in the world of baseball. And he's a former player, played in the majors. He was a catcher in the major leagues, so he has major league experience, and he's a very thoughtful guy. I enjoy him, so it's going to be fun to see him and engage him. Sort of eye to eye in a way, because we've always done
first time ever
audio interviews with them. So that'll be a good one. So we're going to do that tomorrow. That'll drop for you tomorrow. And don't forget on Friday, it's fantasy football time again. We're back with Joe Bartle from rotowire.com, and we'll talk all things fantasy football. Come loaded with your questions about your drafts, about players you're wondering about sleepers, anything that's on your mind. I mean, Joe said after our interview last Friday that he was giving up information to us that he didn't want to give up. Like, we had asked him such good questions.
We got to recap the episode
stuff. Yeah. He was like, oh my God, I'm giving these guys information that I don't want to be giving them. But that again feeds into that whole thing of Joe Bartle, myself, and Boy Green all in the same league, our champs league, that has been associated with the show.
Got to be cagey.
We don't want to know what's going on in each other's heads because, if you have a pick a few before in that round earlier, and you say, Joe Bartle kind of likes that guy. I kind of like him too. I think I'll take him now.
There you go.
So you can snipe your friends, dare I say. So we're always in that danger zone of talking fantasy football. And Joe, of all people, because he's the expert, he has to give up more than anyone. He can't not answer our questions. He's supposed to be talking to the listeners. So when a listener says, hey, who's a good sleeper? He's supposed to answer that question, but he hates telling us. Actually, last week, the sleeper that he gave away was a guy on the Jets, the tight end that they selected in the draft this year.
Taylor.
And now has a Boy Green going, another Jet that I can
How can I snipe Joe? Yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah.
Hey, quick question to you, Boy Green, before we get out of here. And that is, how many Jets do you anticipate you will draft this year on your Champs League fantasy football team? How many Jets would you like to have? All right, on your team this year. What's the minimum? What's the floor, baby? Give us the floor.
Let's see.
How many Jets on Boy Green's team?
So before I can answer that question, just to establish to the fans, here is our roster lineup. So you get one quarterback, you get 3 receivers, you get 2 running backs, you get a tight end, you get a flex, which could be a running back, wide receiver, or tight end, and you get a kicker and a defense. So with that being said, how many Jets would I want on 10, Lerch? I want Justin Fields, Garrett Wilson, Josh Reynolds, Al Lazard, Mason Taylor, the Jets defense, and now Nick Folk has returned. So, the entire lineup, yes.
Even some of your Jet fan friends are saying, come on, man, how about 3. All right, 3.
Okay. All right.
Hep
We
jumped
can
in
sort
and
of
said
negotiate.
3.
Okay.
3's the number.
Okay. You guys are at 3. I'm at 11.
Elaborate, gentlemen. Who are the 3? Who are they?
Ooh, that's a good
who are the
question.
3? I mean, that's the greater question. You got 3 in mind. Who are the 3?
Well,
I
I
took
plan on
Brees
doing.
Hall with the number
Yeah.
2 overall pick last year,
You
gentlemen, and I was
did.
very disappointed. I don't know that I can
That
go
you were.
back down that road again. You know?
Yeah, it's like earlier we did a Chris Carlson conversation, and there was a negotiation that took place between Adam Weitsman and Syracuse over SyracuseOrangeFan.com or whatever it was. He says $250,000, and they're like $1, and then it counted as $1. Here's my negotiation with the fans. I say 11, they say 3. All right, I'm going with 11. So sorry, that's how the negotiation works, folks.
Wonder who the 3 are. I mean, who would be?
If I had
Brees
to
Hall
guess,
would be 1.
Garrett Wilson's
Garrett
on that
Wilson
list.
would be 2.
Justin Fields is
And
on
do
that
you like
list.
Mason Taylor, or maybe it's Justin
Sure, the
Fields?
tight end,
You
he
know?
could be.
The defense, you
Braylon
made a
Allen
good.
could be.
Okay.
Oh, of course.
Answers now. Okay, so let's see what the answers are. So
Okay.
Badshaw says, GW, Mason
Yep.
Taylor, Justin Fields. Okay, and he goes back
Okay.
up the field. So that's his 3. So he's
Okay. All
going
right.
sleeper guy. He's going quarterback that no one seems to want, but I'm going to get him in there as my backup. And if he pops, and then of course a surefire guy in Garrett Wilson. All right, and Hep says the defense, Brees Hall, and G-Dub.
Okay, Garrett. Okay, those are all great choices. So
There you go.
we'll see. I'll let the results speak for themselves. I will be in a lot of fantasy drafts of this man on your screen, so he will see my strategies or as they evolve. So many fantasy drafts to come.
Yes, many to come. Many to come. I'm looking forward to that live one too. For the Friday before Labor Day.
Right?
So
whatever the 29th or whatever that is of August. So we're less than a month away from that
lead up.
fantasy draft.
Big lead
So
up to
get your
that.
prep in.
All right. Again, want to thank our friends at Play It Again Sports for sponsoring today's broadcast. Go see them down on Erie Boulevard in DeWitt. Thanks to Chris Carlson, our guest at the top of the show today. If you missed that and you care about Syracuse sports, definitely worth a watch and a listen. And for Boy Green and for all of you guys, thanks again for contributing. Don't forget, like and subscribe. We are slowly but surely moving up on the subscriber world. Keep telling your friends, though. We got to get to 300 subscribers so I can give away that David Tyree autographed photo that's still sitting on my wall. I want that thing out of here sooner rather than later. So tell your friends and get in on the raffle, the open raffle. No cost at all. Just a click of a button. Subscribe. Hit the notifications so you know we're putting stuff out. Tomorrow, Dick Scott. Friday, Joe Bartle. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you again. Take care.